Your doctor looks at your blood work, sees your vitamin D number, and tells you you are fine. You go home relieved. You assume the vitamin D supplement you have been taking is doing its job. But what if that number your doctor is looking at is only showing half the picture? What if the test that millions of seniors receive every year is measuring the right thing in the wrong way and leaving a critical gap that no one is explaining? In my 22 years working with seniors, I have watched patients come back to me confused. Their vitamin D looked normal on paper, but their immune system was struggling. Their bones were still thinning. Their mood was flat. Their fatigue was relentless. And they could not understand why, because they had been taking their vitamin D faithfully for years. Today, I am going to explain exactly what is happening. And I need to warn you right now. What I am about to tell you about the standard vitamin D test is something most doctors have never had the time to explain. Stay with me all the way through, because the piece I am saving for the end of this video is the one linked to a 36% reduction in the risk of dying from all causes after 70. That number is not from one small study, and it completely changes how you think about vitamin D. I'm Dr. Hayes Anderson, and after 22 years in senior health, I've seen firsthand what happens when vitamin D deficiency hides in plain sight, behind a lab result that looks just fine. By the end of this video, you are going to understand why the standard vitamin D test may be misleading you, what the difference between D2 and D3 actually means for your body, the specific reason your vitamin D supplement may not be activating even if your blood levels look normal, and the combination of nutrients that research links to dramatically lower mortality risk after 70. I have structured this so that each piece builds on the last. Do not skip ahead. The final section changes everything that comes before it. Here is the truth that almost nobody explains clearly enough. Vitamin D is not a simple vitamin. It is a hormone precursor. That means the pill you swallow is not the finished product. It is raw material that your body must convert through a multi-step process before it does anything useful at all. And after 70, that conversion process is quietly breaking down at every single step. Most people have no idea this is happening because the test their doctor orders checks only one stage of the pipeline and entirely misses whether the rest of the process is working. The average appointment with a primary care physician runs about 15 minutes. In that time, a doctor covers medications, blood pressure, weight, lab values, and any pressing symptoms the patient brought to discuss. There is simply no room to walk through the four-step biology of vitamin D activation and explain where aging disrupts it. So the standard test gets ordered, the result gets reported, and the gap in understanding stays open. Add to this that vitamin D supplement marketing has been built on one simple message: low levels are bad, higher levels are better, and any pill labeled D3 is doing the job. That message is not wrong. It is just dangerously incomplete for anyone over 70. What I am going to give you today is the complete picture, not to frighten you, to equip you. When your doctor orders a vitamin D test, what comes back is called 25-hydroxy vitamin D, sometimes written as 25-OHD. This is the storage form of vitamin D, the form your liver creates after processing the D3 you swallow, or the D3 your skin makes from sunlight. Most labs flag anything below 20 nanograms per milliliter as deficient. Some set the lower boundary at 30. Your doctor looks at your number, sees it sits somewhere in an acceptable range, and the conversation moves on. But here is what that test is not telling you. The 25-hydroxy form is not the active form of vitamin D. It is the intermediate form. Before vitamin D can actually do anything in your body, before it can influence immune function, regulate inflammation, support bone metabolism, affect mood, or reduce cancer risk. It must be converted one more time by the kidneys into its fully active hormonal form, called 1,25-dihydroxyvitamin D, or calcitriol. This final conversion step is not measured by the standard test. And after 70, the kidneys perform this final conversion less efficiently, less completely, and less reliably than they did 20 years earlier. So a senior can have a 25-hydroxy number that looks perfectly acceptable, 35, 40, even 50 nanograms per milliliter, while still being functionally vitamin D deficient at the cellular level, because the conversion to the active form is stalled. Let me tell you about Richard, 74 years old, who came in after 2 years of persistent fatigue, recurring respiratory infections every winter, and what he described as a heaviness in his mood that lifted only partially in summer. Richard's most recent vitamin D test showed 38 nanograms per milliliter. His previous doctor had told him that was perfectly fine and no changes were needed. When we dug deeper, looking at kidney function markers and conducting a more comprehensive metabolic panel, the picture changed. Richard's kidneys were functioning at reduced capacity, not at a level that would trigger a kidney disease diagnosis, but enough that his final conversion of vitamin D to calcitriol was significantly impaired. His storage levels were fine. His active vitamin D was not reaching his tissues. He had been reassured for 2 years by a number that was only telling half the story. This is not a rare situation. It is an underdiagnosed one. Reduced kidney function in seniors is common, often subclinical, and almost never discussed in the context of vitamin D effectiveness. If you are over 70 and you have been told your vitamin D is fine, it is worth asking your doctor specifically about your kidney function and whether your vitamin D conversion might be affected. That conversation alone could change your health trajectory. But the test gap is only the first issue, because even before your kidneys are involved, there is a second problem with the vitamin D most seniors are taking, one that starts right on the label. And this one surprises almost everyone I explain it to, because most people assume that vitamin D is vitamin D. It is not. If you have ever looked closely at a supplement bottle, you may have noticed that some are labeled vitamin D2 and others vitamin D3. Most people assume these are interchangeable, just two names for the same thing. They are not. And the difference between them matters enormously for anyone over 70. Vitamin D2, also called ergocalciferol, is the form produced by plants and fungi. It was the first form to be manufactured synthetically, and it is still found in many prescription vitamin D supplements, in some fortified foods, and in lower-cost over-the-counter products. Vitamin D3, also called cholecalciferol, is the form produced by human skin when exposed to UVB sunlight. It is also the form found in fatty fish, egg yolks, and most modern D3 supplements. These two forms are not processed the same way once they enter the body. They are not stored the same way, and they do not produce the same outcomes. Research comparing D2 and D3 supplementation consistently shows that D3 raises and maintains blood levels of 25-hydroxyvitamin D approximately 87% more effectively than the same dose of D2. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that D3 was roughly twice as potent as D2 in raising and sustaining vitamin D status over a 28-day period. D2 breaks down faster, is stored less efficiently in tissue, and converts to the storage and active forms at a lower rate. For a younger adult with robust digestive and liver function, the difference may be manageable. For a senior over 70 with reduced stomach acid, a slower liver, and declining kidney conversion capacity, taking D2 instead of D3 can mean the difference between a supplement that genuinely works and one that produces a modestly improved blood number while delivering little actual biological benefit. Here is why this matters so directly for you. Prescription vitamin D, the kind many doctors prescribe when they see a deficient test result, is almost always D2. It is prescribed at high weekly doses, often 50,000 international units once a week. The blood number improves. The patient is told they are corrected. But the form, the dosing schedule, and the patient's underlying conversion capacity mean that functional vitamin D activity at the tissue level may still be substantially lower than the test suggests. If your current supplement or prescription is D2, switching to D3 is one of the simplest and most impactful changes you can make. It costs the same. It requires no prescription. And the research is unambiguous about which form serves the aging body more effectively. But I want you to stay with me, because even D3, even a good daily D3 supplement taken correctly, can fail to work in an aging body for a reason that almost no supplement label will ever explain. And this next piece is the one that changes everything for the patients I share it with. Vitamin D3, once absorbed and processed by the liver into the 25-hydroxy storage form, cannot complete its conversion to the active hormonal form without adequate magnesium. Magnesium is the essential cofactor for the enzymes responsible for every major conversion step in vitamin D metabolism. Without sufficient magnesium, the vitamin D sitting in your bloodstream cannot finish becoming calcitriol. It cannot enter cells and activate the vitamin D receptor. It cannot do the work you are taking it to do. And here is why this creates such a quiet, widespread problem in seniors. Magnesium deficiency is one of the most common nutritional gaps in people over 65. Research has consistently found that more than half of Americans do not meet the recommended dietary intake for magnesium, and the problem is more pronounced in older adults. Common blood pressure medications, acid reflux drugs, and diuretics all actively deplete magnesium. Aging kidneys retain magnesium less effectively. The gut absorbs less of it from food with each passing decade. And because the standard blood test for magnesium, the serum magnesium test, measures magnesium in the blood, not inside cells where it actually functions, most seniors with intracellular magnesium depletion receive normal test results and are never told there is a problem. The result is millions of seniors taking vitamin D3 every morning, maintaining a blood level that looks acceptable, and still experiencing the fatigue, immune vulnerability, bone loss, and mood changes that vitamin D deficiency produces, because the magnesium required to activate their vitamin D is simply not there. Eleanor, 71, came in after 2 years of taking 2,000 IU of D3 daily on her previous doctor's recommendation. Her 25-hydroxy vitamin D level sat at 42 nanograms per milliliter, solidly in the normal range. But she was exhausted. She was getting sick every time a cold passed through her family. Her bone density scan had not improved meaningfully. When we tested her red blood cell magnesium, a more accurate indicator of true cellular magnesium status than the standard serum test, her levels were low. We added magnesium glycinate at 300 milligrams each evening. Within 6 weeks, Eleanor's energy had shifted noticeably. Her sleep deepened. Her mood lifted. Over the following months, her bone markers showed improvement. The vitamin D had been there the whole time. The cofactor it needed had not been. If you are taking vitamin D and not seeing the benefits you expected, magnesium status is the first place to look. And if you want to confirm yours more accurately, Ask your doctor specifically for a red blood cell magnesium test, not the standard serum test. The serum test will almost always show normal, even when cellular stores are depleted. Now we have arrived at the part I have been building toward, and I want you to hear this clearly, because this is not a minor footnote. This is the center of everything. A large-scale analysis drawn from multiple studies and referenced extensively in the British Medical Journal found that seniors who maintained adequate levels of both vitamin D and magnesium had a 36% lower risk of death from all causes compared to those who were deficient in either one or both. Not from a single cause like heart disease or cancer, from all causes combined. That is the breadth of what these two nutrients, working together as a system, appear to influence. And that number has been replicated and referenced across multiple subsequent reviews. It is not a statistical outlier, it is a consistent finding. The reason the combination is so much more powerful than either nutrient alone comes back to everything we have been discussing. Vitamin D cannot complete its activation without magnesium, and magnesium's role in cardiovascular health, muscle function, nerve signaling, sleep regulation, and inflammation control is itself magnified when adequate vitamin D is present to support the cellular receptors that respond to both. They do not simply add together, they multiply each other's effectiveness. Two nutrients, one system, outcomes that neither achieves independently. And there is a third member of this system that is worth knowing about, because it completes the picture in a way that directly protects the heart. Vitamin K2. K2 activates a protein in the body that directs calcium, which vitamin D helps absorb from the gut, into bones and away from artery walls. Without K2, the increased calcium absorption that vitamin D supports can, without proper direction, contribute to arterial calcification over time. The complete trio, D3, magnesium, and K2, functions as an integrated system. D3 absorbs and mobilizes calcium. K2 directs it into bone and keeps it out of blood vessels. Magnesium keeps the entire activation pathway running. Remove any one of the three, and the system works against itself. With all three in place, the research shows outcomes that nothing else in senior nutrition matches. None of this is fringe science. These are mechanisms documented in peer-reviewed research across multiple medical journals. What is lacking is not the evidence. It is the time and a clinical appointment to explain it. So let us make this practical right now, because you deserve to walk away from this with specific steps, not just information. First, look at your vitamin D supplement label today. If it says D2, ergocalciferol, or if you are taking a prescription vitamin D in high weekly doses, talk to your doctor about switching to D3, cholecalciferol, taken daily. Daily dosing more closely mirrors how the body naturally processes this nutrient and maintains more stable blood levels throughout the week. Second, take your D3 with your largest meal of the day, one that includes healthy fat, eggs, avocado, olive oil, salmon, a handful of nuts. Fat-soluble vitamins require dietary fat for absorption through the gut wall. Taking D3 on an empty stomach or with a fat-free meal can reduce absorption by 50 to 70%. This one habit change alone can meaningfully increase how much of the vitamin D you take actually reaches your bloodstream. Third, address your magnesium. The best forms for seniors are magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate. Both are gentler on the digestive system and more bioavailable than the magnesium oxide found in most basic supplements. A typical range discussed in clinical settings is 250 to 400 milligrams per day, taken in the evening away from calcium if you supplement with that. Ask your doctor about a red blood cell magnesium test if you want a more accurate read on your actual cellular status. Fourth, if you are taking calcium supplements, consider adding vitamin K2 in the MK7 form. To ensure that the calcium vitamin D helps you absorb, is being directed into bone and not depositing in arterial walls. If you are on any blood-thinning medication like warfarin, this conversation must happen with your prescribing doctor before you add K2, as it affects how those medications work. This is not optional guidance. This is a safety requirement. Fifth, ask for a follow-up vitamin D test after making these changes, and ask your doctor specifically about your kidney function. If your kidneys are converting vitamin D to its active form less efficiently, your doctor may discuss whether additional support is appropriate for your individual situation. This is not about taking more pills. It is about understanding the system your body uses to process what you are already taking, and making sure every step in that system is actually working. You have been told your vitamin D is fine. You have been handed a number and reassured, and you walked away not knowing that the number was only measuring one stage of a four-step process, that the form of the supplement matters as much as the dose, that the mineral required to activate it is chronically depleted in most seniors, and that pairing D3 with the right cofactors is what the research links to dramatically better outcomes in the years after 70. That gap is not your fault. It is a gap between what the research shows and what a 15-minute appointment allows time to explain. Now you have the complete picture. Which piece of this surprised you the most? Was it the test gap, the D2 versus D3 difference, or the magnesium activation connection? Leave a comment below. I read every one, and your answer tells me which topics matter most to this community. If you have a parent, a spouse, or a friend over 70 who is taking vitamin D, please share this with them. Not for this channel, for them. Because the difference between functional vitamin D activity and a blood number that just looks fine could genuinely matter for their health. In the next video in this series, we go deep into the bones themselves, specifically the silent process of arterial calcification that happens when calcium is taken without the right partners, why your coronary calcium score may be telling you something your cholesterol test is missing, and what the research shows can begin to reverse existing arterial stiffness. That one connects directly to everything we discussed today, and you will not want to miss it.